Today we're going to build a menu using the modern tab control. And I believe that a lot of people have seen this modern tab control and thought to themselves, you know what, that would make a great menu, like a minimalistic menu that you could either put across the top of your screen as tabs or on the side as a left nav menu bar. And what you'll find out is that whenever it ends up being a little bit more difficult and more involved than one might anticipate, because whenever you try to use the default property, of course there is no default property, so you'll find the default selected items and you'll see some really odd things like duplications of items. So listen guys, today we're going to run through creating our own menu component using this great looking modern tab control. You guys ready? I say we just jump right into it. Okay. Now I'm going to exit full screen mode and go to a new project that I just started this morning here. And I created a new project called it Modern Tab Control Menu. And how I got here was I went to new screen and I picked this sidebar screen template because all the cool kids are doing these, using these responsive containers. So that's what we should probably use too, huh? All right, and I renamed these containers to be a little bit more descriptive. So there is a modern container here, I should say responsive container, that will make items show vertically. Okay, so if I click on this container here, you'll see that the direction is vertical. And then within that vertical, I called it CNT, short for container, whole screen. Because let's say if we were to go to the screen and perhaps change the background color or the fill of the screen, you know, nothing really changes, right? So what you'll want to do is go to this container and change it there. So that's what I'm going to do now. Oh, that sort of looks cool. Now, if you take a look at our modern theming over here, we're using the default Power Apps theme, and that's going to be fine for our purposes today. I'll go back to Tree View, and I'm going to expand all of these containers. And I simply dropped a modern header control, which you can find right here. Now, if you don't see these modern controls, so if you type in tab, this is the control that we're going to use today. This is the modern tabless control. And some of these modern controls have preview and some of them don't. Perhaps the ones that don't are more polished and ready to be used in a production app. Or if you see preview, that's an indication that you might want to hold off for using that for a production app. Okay, so let's go into settings, because if by any chance you don't see these modern controls, you will want to go into the updates section of the settings. And here within new, we see modern controls and themes, and it's already turned on. Now, this particular environment that I'm using here, I've created this environment. It's a dev environment, and I have it set up to show me all the new and upcoming features. So that's sort of nice to have, but I have to keep in mind that some of you are working in an environment that doesn't have that turned on. So I wanted to mention that. Also, if you're on a government tenant, and there's two levels of government tenants, you'll be a few releases behind. And of course, the other government tenant would be something like the Department of Defense, military, that type of thing, which would get even a later release cycle. Okay, so we have a screen here, and I think just first off, what we'll do is I'm going to add a control, and you know what? Let's add that tab control over here. There's the tab control. And by default, it's going to be horizontal. Now realize you can go over here to alignment. You can change this to vertical if you want. Now, if it's not tall enough or wide enough to show all the menu items, you're going to get this little ellipsis, these 3 dots. And perhaps you might like something like that. Perhaps you don't want the menu taking up so much room. Okay. So you could just make it small enough to see these 3 dots, and you can see those items there. You might want to use that for like a mobile app where it's a portrait oriented, where there's not a lot of space for a menu, but they can still access it like this. So you've got several options. Now, something I will say here at the beginning is that we're just not going to use this tab control. We're actually going to make this into a component. But I just wanted to go over the basics of using this control first before we start jumping off and start discussing concepts about creating your own component, your own control. Okay, so let's take a look at this tab control. And okay, so if I click on items, you see that these are statically defined or literal values, string values here. And because we have these square brackets, this is considered a data type of table. More accurately, that these square brackets create a collection, which is slightly different than a table, because if you create something, you could have created this with a table function. And if you try to use some collection functions on something that was created with a table function, you'll find that it's slightly different. I've gotten errors like, hey, you're trying to use this as a collection, but it's not really a collection. So if you create it with these square brackets or using collect, clear collect, then you know that you definitely do have a real collection and not just a table. But the data type, even if you're working with the collection, it's always going to say table here. And we can open this up and we can see all the values here. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to create my own collection, which I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to click on this button here. I'm going to say create menu, menu item. I'll say collection here. Create menu collection. And even though we're going to write code here that will define a collection for our menu, that isn't where you're going to want it to stay. Eventually, we're going to move that over to our app formulas. Okay. Now, if you want to look at the code that I have so far in app formulas, which is a much better place for defining constants or your user-defined functions than just sticking most of that type of stuff in your app on start. Okay, I try to avoid app on start as much as I can because I view it sort of like global variables. You don't want to use global variables or app on start unless you got a good reason to. Otherwise, you want to use more appropriate things like context variables, local variables, and in this case, app formulas. Okay. So right now, I'm just going to click on this button here. I'm going to open this up, and we'll create this with a clear collect. What's the difference between a collect and a clear collect? The collect function will actually add items to a collection. The clear collect function does the same thing, but it clears it out before it puts those items in there. Okay, so you definitely don't want to use something like clear collect inside of a loop where you're trying to add items every iteration of the loop. You'll find that you'll always have one, whatever is put in there in the last iteration of the loop. Yeah. So I'm going to give this a good, meaningful name. And because this collection is eventually going to be over in the app formulas, everything in app formulas, I like to start off with a prefix of fx. Now, if this was a collection I was creating that wasn't defined in app formulas, I probably would prefix that with a COL, which is a recommended best practice by Microsoft. And what I've seen as a best practice for creating things in app formulas is to start things off with fx. So I'm just simply going to call this menu items. And then what are we going to put in here? Well, at this point, what we want to do is create all of our items. Okay, so I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to use curly braces. Whenever you see curly braces, think a record. Just like when you see square brackets, you think collection. All right, so what are all the different items that you'd want to have in your menu? So I would probably put in here like item text, menu label, menu title, something along those lines, whatever you want to call it. Really doesn't matter. Probably the one thing that does matter is whatever system that you use for naming these properties, that is consistent. For example, if you've got an application that uses several menus, you'd want to set up this collection so that all the menus would understand the schema, the type of collection that you're creating here. And the type of collection is defined by all the properties you give it. Okay, so I might say menu. I'm going to call it menu text. Now, the first item in our menu, I'm going to make this screen 1. Now, the next item I'm going to put in here is menu. I'm going to call it screen to go to. And I'll use screen 1. Now, what I meant to do here when I said screen 1 is actually put this into quotes to make this a string for this. Whereas a screen to go to, that actually needs to be a reference to a real screen in your application. Now, let's say we don't necessarily want to hard code a screen name, or a screen for the menu text here for the menu item. What we could do is we could use the reference to that screen and then say dot name. Now, there's something else I like to do here, which is it is a recommended best practice by Microsoft to name your screens with spaces and probably more than one word, even if it was screen 1, or let's do something like home. Do you want to call your screen home? Well, again, a recommended best practice is also to put the word screen in there at the end. And you want the screen names to be very human readable, especially for those with disabilities. They might be using a screen reader. If you didn't put a space in there, then it would probably be more difficult for a screen reader to read it. Also, if you use this header control, it's going to use the name of the screen. So you see here screen 1. That's because it was called screen 1. How do you get that to update? Well, you just add another screen temporarily. You'll only see that once, and then you come back to that and you'll see that it says home screen there. Now, if we go back into our collection that we were just building, what's so great about Power Apps is because we named our screen here, it actually changed the reference to the screen. I like that. Now, inside the menu, where it's listing off all the screens we could go to within this menu, I don't like to have the word screen in there because, yeah, almost every single item on the menu is going to be a screen. So it just feels like it just feels a little redundant. So what I might do here is say substitute. We're going to swap out one string for another string. And the first parameter here is text. Then we have old text and then new text. All right, so that screen's name is going to be the text. I'm going to look for space screen, and I'm going to replace that with an empty string. I don't want it in there. Okay. Okay. What other items, what other properties or fields should we have in this collection for menu items? You might want some type of icon. So I don't want to use a Power Apps icon. I want to have more control over it. What I want to do is put in, I'm going to say ASCII. We'll call it ASCII icon. And inside of this, it should just be one character. Now, if you're on Windows, you could hit Windows key on your keyboard with a dot, and you're going to get all kinds of stuff here. Now, if this really is the home screen, I'm going to type home. Oh, look at that. We have a little icon right here, an emoji that we could use for that. Okay, so we've got that. What else would we want here within our menu collection? We might want to have a sort order. I'll make this number 1. Now, I do have a lot of templates that I've worked on in the past, like my Jumpstart Kit, or in this case, the Jumpstart Kit 2.0 that we've been building in one of my school communities every Monday night. I'm going to go over to my app formulas, and I'm going to go look at, if I click on my menu here, I've got the, yeah, here is the menu now. Menu items is defined right here. What else do we have? I have it set up so that it would handle a URL to really a URL to anything rather than doing a navigate inside the menu to go to a different screen. Launch would just open up a new link. So this menu that I have built here does that. I don't think I'm going to focus on that today, but we do have a menu image. We do have menu icons, the screen to go to, the menu label. And then if you wanted, I sort of like this, you could have a little property in there that would either make it visible or not. And maybe you'd want to hide and show menu items dynamically, programmatically while the thing is running. I think that's sort of cool. So I'm going to say visible. True. Okay, there we go. We have one menu item. Now something else I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the square bracket. I'm going to put a comma here because we have a second one to add. And for this second one, what I'm going to do is say screen 5. Put that there. The sort order would be, something that we could do is like, hey, I always want this to appear at the end. This screen 5 is like a temporary type of screen, and I always want it to appear at the very bottom. So we could put 999 there. Now, in order to define this collection already in a way that is sorted the way that we want it, I like the idea of just, hey, let's just use the sort function right here. Why not? Now let's see if this works. We've got the collection, and I need to indent this over, and the sort function needs a second parameter, and I'm going to go with sort order. And then it's fine. Okay, we have 2 menu items, and I'm going to double click on that and copy that. I'm going to run this. I'm going to click on that button, which will create that collection. All right. Now, I'm going to go over to this tab control, and I'm going to click on items. and I'm going to paste. Hey, there are menu items. Now, because we've set this up as a vertical menu, we don't, and it's not very tall, it's hiding a lot of things here. So let's set up this tab control. I see height down here in the, well, I probably need to move myself around so you guys can see this. Down here, you'll see height. Okay. And I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to do here is just say parent.height. Oh, look at this. We've got two numbers there. Isn't that nice? And also for the width, there's the width. I'm going to say parent.width. Okay, so now nothing is hidden from us there. Now, whenever this happens, these numbers appearing, it's just a little confused, okay? And what we need to do is go over here to the property pane on the right. And let's go ahead and give this a good name. Let's see, tab menu. Now, in our items, we have that collection defined. Here are the two items. And I want you to click on fields, and it won't bring up the fields here. So you're going to have to click on this link here called edit. So we'll add an item. Now, what I would suggest is that you add this menu text here. I'll click add. And now we see we have the screen names. What I've noticed from this tab, this modern tab control, is that it can get really confused with the items. So we could add them all, but then which one? Because it seems to only be capable of showing one of these things. So if we actually want to show the icon, we're going to have to do a few things to make that visible. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and hide this. And whenever the user clicks on this this menu here, we want it to go to the item. So something that I will do, this guy right here probably needs to have a transparent background. It's sort of bugging me to make that sort of blue to be shown between these two. Okay, so here's the tab control. We're going to go back over to the property pane on the right, go into it advanced, and we have on change and on select. Now the on change, that could be triggered or fired whenever the user clicks on and changes the selected item, but it could also change based on these default selected items. So in some cases, you'll want to stay away from this. In some cases, you might have some recursive things going on. So every time it's changed, then you have something that runs that modifies this in some way, which might change what the default selected items are, which again would fire the on change again. So I'm not going to use that here, okay? Here on the on select, when the user selects something, what I want to have happen is I want to navigate. Where do we want to navigate? The navigate function is a function that you use to move from screen to screen. And we need a reference to a screen. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reference the self, which if you notice down here, what control are we in? We are inside the tab menu control. So if you ever use this self keyword, it's always going to reference the control that you're currently in. So I'm going to say self dot selected, okay, dot. Hey, look at all this. We got the screen to go to. Isn't that cool? So we could just use that. I'm going to save this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. I'm going to go down here to screen. Okay, so this is a blank screen. Something that I would like to do is duplicate this first screen. Okay, even though they look almost exactly the same at this point. But I'm going to delete this one. And here I'm going to call this screen 5. I'll go back to this screen. And I'll make sure that the code still is working okay. We do have screen 5. We might want to use a different icon for this. So I'm going to do Windows period and type in 5. And lo and behold, I've got an emoji that says 5. All right, so I'm going to use that. So we still have screen 5. Okay. Now, it's sort of good that we put a space before this screen, because if there was no space, this screen name would just be 5, or at least the menu text would. All right, I'm going to save this, and let's see if this thing works so far. All right, I'm going to run this. You can see that we're on the home screen. I'm going to click on screen 5, and here we are on screen 5. I would almost expect the selected menu item for screen 5 to be selected. I would want that bar to be right here beside screen 5 because we're on that screen. Now I am going to click on home, and now we're in the home screen. So at least that works. And you see now that we're on the home screen, it says screen 5. So we probably need to fix that. Okay. So here inside this tab menu, now we're going to work with a property called default selected items. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use our menu items, our collection, which is, I thought it was FX, something or other. Let's go get that. Yeah, FX menu items. And what I want to do here is I want to look up the precise item within that collection. And so that's one way of doing it. We could do a lookup and match up the string with in the collection with the active screen. Okay, so a lot of times people will do this, which a lot of times works well for a record listing control, like a gallery, to select an item that is the current screen. Okay, so we'll do this by now keep in mind we're trying to match up the text in the menu with the current screen. How you get at the current screen dynamically, say app.activeScreen. And if you want to get at the name, you could just say name there. Now let's actually say dot name. And now this isn't like a drop down, a classic drop down control where we're just matching up the text. Okay, it is expecting an item, but this is how you get at the active screen's name. Okay, so what I was thinking initially was exactly what I wanted to do. I just thinking about all the other different ways we could handle this, or the different ways that people might think of. But what we want to do here is, now you notice the name of this property, it's plural. That would lead me to believe that it is expecting a table value rather than a record. Now, I don't know how you could have more than one item selected in a tab. Okay, so you notice that I gave it the whole collection. So you would think both of them would be selected. I don't know why Microsoft set it up that way, but we're going to roll with it here. Okay, so I'm going to go do a lookup within this collection, and I'm looking for where the screen to go to is the screen that is active. Okay, so doing a lookup will give you a record, and let's see what we've got here. If I select this whole thing, so these are all the fields. So home is the active screen. Okay, so that works. Very good. Now things might get more complicated as we turn this into a component, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this tab control because we've modified it, and I'm going to go over here to screen 5. I'm going to delete that one, and I'm going to paste in the one I just copied from the home screen. And based on that property that we had just changed to false selected items, I'm expecting it to have screen 5. All right, I'm going to run this, and I'm just going to click around. Okay, boom, here on screen 5. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to click on screen 5. Okay, so something is afoot. Something isn't working right on the second screen. And we see here, yeah, it's looking at the active screen. Now, something else we could do, I wonder if we'll have any difference at all. We can say that screen to go to .name and the active screen .name. Let's see if that changes, if that improves what we're doing here. Click on screen 5. Click back home. Screen 5. No, doesn't like that. Okay. Whenever something doesn't work the way that I would intend it to within Power Apps, what I do is I try to isolate. If you have a bug on your hands, you need to isolate. You need to be able to recreate it, number one, but also you want to isolate the as many portions of what's going on. You need to isolate those out and inspect and figure out what's going on with that. Joys of going live. And Okay, what about now? Did that help out at all? Check 1 2, check 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. Um, okay. Oh, this is frustrating. It started to work. I think I got it to work and then I muted. Guys, how long was I muted for? Hopefully it was just a moment. Oh, the joys of going live. You never know what's going to happen. All right. So if you guys don't mind, just keep me updated if it stops working again. I'd appreciate that because I definitely want you guys to be able to hear me here. Okay. All right. So what I was saying was I have a working copy over here as a component. And what I use instead of a lookup is a filter. Okay. And if you think about it, um, this is plural. So it's looking for items, not a single record, but multiple items. Okay. So did you know that you can change a lookup to a filter or a filter to a lookup very easily without any errors? If there are multiple items there and you're using a lookup, it's going to return the first one it comes across, and filter will return them all. Okay. So I'm going to compare this screen with the screen. I'm going to save this. I'm going to run it. Click on home, click on screen 5, and we still have a problem there. Okay. Something I think I will do is I am going to exit out of this project and come back in. Ah, really? I was muted for 6 minutes. That's awful. I'm so sorry about that, guys. Man. All right, I'm going to go in here and edit, and we'll see if this thing works right away. So perhaps what I'll do is I'll go back and edit this video, and you can take things away from a video on YouTube. You just can't add anything to it. Now, if you guys could let me know perhaps what I was doing or what you guys missed just based on the visuals, let me know if I need to repeat anything, okay? All right. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to click on that menu, the create menu collection. Yeah. Sometimes this is a 4K or an 8K. It's a full frame mirrorless camera. It's got high quality, and sometimes it's probably too much sometimes, but okay. Now I'm going to click on screen 5. Look at that, guys. It now selects screen 5. Okay, so that is not really a problem. If we can exit out and come back in and then it works and we can't get it to happen again, then you fix the problem. So I'm glad I didn't spend too much time. And maybe those 6 minutes where I was muted, I was just talking about that. Hopefully. Again, if anybody can identify, yeah, anything that was missed while I was muted, please let me know and I'll go over that again. And Kevin says you were trying to isolate the cause. Absolutely. So what I was saying there was, you notice that I added 2 labels here. Whatever this tab control dot selected screen to go to.name. I display that. And I show what the active screen name is. And before I went out and came back in, those things were different. But now you see that it's all working properly. Okay. Okay, what are the other things that you might want to have happen within a screen? Well, I could tell you that we might want to modify this a little bit to include this ASCII icon. And I might add another string on here. Let's do something like, let's see. Probably want the icon at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah, guys, I need a faster computer. So I'm going to add a new one in here, and I'm going to call this title. And I'm going to cut that, put it down there, put a comma there. And then I'm going to leave this as an empty string. Actually, what I'm thinking of doing here, I'm going to change this to title. And I'm going to use a function here on our collection called add columns. So the source, as you can see here, is our collection between these two square brackets. And then the column name that I want here is menu text. And then the expression will be title, actually ASCII icon, and we'll put a space in there and we'll add in the title. Now, what error do we have? Invalid number of arguments. I do know that we are missing a parenthesis, which can mess you up sometimes. Okay, what do you guys think of this code? So you notice we have a title, which was our menu text, but we use this add columns function to take a collection, add a column to it, and define what the value is. I like it. Okay. So Kevin asks, is it possible to create an expandable menu item containing sub-items when it's clicked? Yes. I would probably accomplish that in a way where I would use nested galleries. That's probably the first thing that comes to mind. However, what we could also do is we could add a property here where it will sort of indent the text and it might appear like a tree view type of thing. So if we have time today, perhaps we'll go back and do that. Justin says, I usually like to include a title and a non-ASCII icon. Okay. Now, in that case, Justin, do you use like SVG code? Okay. This around. Now, I want to see if this works. I'm going to run this. I'm going to click on that. Oh, look at that. Now, home looks good. The screen 5, I really don't like the look of that. It almost seems like there's not even a space in there. Okay. I'm going to try to close down as many applications that I can. SQL Server takes up a lot of resources, at least the Studio Manager. Yeah, I'm just start closing things up and hope that it helps me out here. Okay. Hopefully, hopefully that's going to help us out. All right. So Justin says no. Built-in icons haven't gotten around to using SVG yet. Well, what's great about the SVG is you can change the color of the icons, which is really nice. And you're not limited to just the regular icons. Okay, I'm going to go into where we defined our menu. And what we've got here in this first icon, no spaces around it. I actually don't like that that icon there. Let's pick something like this target. There we go. And you see that we do have one space there, so that should be there. I'm going to run it. I'm going to click on that button again. Guys, look at this. What's going on here? It duplicated it there for a second, didn't it? Okay, it seems to be working fine now, but for a moment it seemed like it duplicated. All right. Now, something I would probably want to do on this is, let's see if we have any type of padding. Let's see if there's any type of padding, because I sort of want for this little line to be a little bit more visible or obvious. Don't want it to blend in with the border. So I'm going to look for anything that's got padding that I might expect there, and I don't see that. So, and you know, somebody could say, well, you just add padding to this container, and that's true. We could do that. So I'm going to put in maybe 10, maybe 5. That looks a little better. You guys like that a little bit better there? You can see the difference between these two, because I haven't done it to the second one there. And to be honest, I sort of like to be contained inside this thing. So if I just grab the menu and put it somewhere else, I don't want to have to change other controls, you know. Yeah. And I'm just looking at, I've closed everything down that I can, making sure that there isn't anything else I could do here that might help us out. Okay. Now, if I wanted to put spacing in here inside this tab, I might change the X. Let's add a third screen. I'm going to duplicate the home screen. And I'm going to call this the About screen. And then within our menu collection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another item. Now I'm going to put this at the end, and you'll notice that this sort order is going to make sure it's all in the right order. I would admit that if we kept them in the same order as we expect them to display, it might be easier for us to look at this. But I'm looking for a challenge here. Showing how the sort order works here. So there's an icon. Now for the screen, this is going to be about screen. Okay, I'm going to save that and run it. Click on that button. Okay. So when I created this, it added more items here. Okay, right when we just added it. And you notice we're doing a clear collect. So that's a little odd, huh? Um, Now, if I run this, go to a different screen, then it's fixed. Okay. And there is something that we can do to help that out, which we will tackle later once we have it inside of a control. And I think we're getting pretty close to doing this. I'm going to take this padding out because we're going to move this into a component. But I'd like you guys' feedback. What do you think about this menu in general? Do you like it? You know, what does this thing look like as a horizontal? Okay. So you could have like a little menu bar across the top that would have look like tabs, functions as tabs. But here on this side, you almost expect it to be vertical. And you notice we've got this size property. Okay, this stuff already looks small to me. Okay. And it says large. Now, if I hit small, how much smaller does it get? It gets a little bit smaller, but it also takes out some padding between the items. And what I'm wondering is if I go in here and say 20 on the, so you can make that bigger with the font size. Let's make that like 32. Okay. So if I say medium, it's going to put some more spacing around it. If I say large, yeah. I'm going to make this something like 18, maybe 20, 25. Okay. Right. So in order to create a component, I'm going to click on the Components tab over here in the tree view, and I'm going to click on New Component. And let's see what's all involved. Now, I would recommend this for any type of menu that you're going to create. Okay, I like that suggestion. I think that's great, just smaller. What about Hamburger when it's on a small screen? That's a great idea. So I think I might add that to this component here, okay? So the first thing that I want to do, well, let's add a hamburger. There we go. There we go. Now this should be tab menu. Now I'm going to add, well, I'd sort of like to add this thing over here. I'm going to right click and copy it. And let's see if this pastes over here okay. And let's see what errors we have. Okay, well, we don't have access to those menu items anymore. There is a shortcut here called Access App Scope, and I don't recommend it unless you've got a really good reason to. It violates a lot of object-oriented concepts, and while creating a component, you're creating an object, you're creating a class that will be instantiated as an object when the application runs. So for now, for the default selected items, I'm just going to comment that out. I want to get rid of these errors. I think what we're going to have to do, and this is what you want to do with a lot of components, where it needs to have some dynamic information. Okay, so I'm going to create a new property here, and I'm going to call this menu items. And I'm going to set this up as a table. And if you guys would excuse me just for one, I'll be right back. And I am back. I have a toddler who is right outside my door, making a lot of noises. Very, making it very difficult to concentrate. So that's what I had to deal with there. Okay, so we click on this component. We added a new menu item, and it gives us a table, which I don't like. What you want to do is go get a little sampling of all the fields that you're going to use. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. Yeah. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this that I created there. I'm going to copy that. And it needs like a sampling. Not that it's, all the field names need to be in there. Okay. So we gave it a real collection. And so this should work just fine. Let's see what other errors that we're working with here. Okay, so the tab control is looking for that collection. So what we do now, how you wire up a property. Yeah, I think I do need a supercomputer. Okay. I'm gonna do a GoFundMe or something. Yeah. And I started using this laptop, which is an Alienware gaming laptop. I thought it could probably handle everything that I do, but I stopped using other computer because it was too slow. And after I load up all my apps and all my screens, some days it doesn't want to work too hard. Okay, so for these items, in order to wire this up, what we'll want to do is we need to reference the property. How do we reference the property? Well, we refer to the component name, comp tab menu, dot menu items. That is that new property that we gave it. How about that? Okay, so here we have a hamburger. Now, if we make this thing really small, you notice how small that ellipsis is there? So let's see if we can get this to be comparable here. Okay. Yeah, let me see if I can modify this a little bit. The menu. I know it's laggy, so maybe it's more of a distraction than anything. So what I'll do is I'll just hide it, and hopefully that's better. I wish I could get rid of this. Let me see if I can. I think if I hide it, I also um, make my voice go away. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this icon here is I am going to, I'll probably set up a property here called foreground color. And we'll make this a color. Now I'll click create. And then I click on this. Now there's two things you can click on. There's two things that you can click on over here when you create a property for your component. So you see we got foreground color here, and then we've got color. So if you click on foreground color, you're able to change what the default color is. And I think what I'm going to do here is say app.theme.colors.primary. Now I just saw primary foreground, and that's white. I don't want that. Let's do primary. Yeah. And then for this icon, I'm going to rename this to be ICO Hamburger. And let's set up the color here to be comp tab menu dot foreground color. Okay. Now I'm thinking I might want this to be like 40 by 40. And then use some padding here. So if I use something like 10 all the way around, that might look okay. Okay. Now we do need a Boolean value here in this component that will keep track of if it needs to show or not. And let's look at the onSelect. Now, if you try to add in a modern icon, I don't believe that it's going to give you that onSelect. So there's still a lot of cases where you're going to want to use the classic icon. Okay, so here, let's see. I don't believe we can do update context. In fact, it doesn't even show up as IntelliSense because we're in a component. So boom, I've got a good reason to use a global now. GBL Hamburger I'm gonna call it Hamburger State. And I'm gonna give it a choice of three fields, either expanded, collapsed, or hidden. And we can sort of cycle through that. I'm going to open this up a little bit because, I mean, look at this, guys. Here in Power Apps, if we click on the hamburger, it doesn't hide, like make it invisible, visible. But in some cases, you might actually want it to be like that. For, let's say, a mobile app where it's portrait oriented, you might want it to be, you might want it to be completely hidden. So why not give the option of having three states, not just two? So we could do that here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a switch. And we're going to look at the current hamburger state. If it is expanded, then we want to change it to collapsed. If it is collapsed, then we want it to be hidden. If it is hidden, it should go back to expanded. Otherwise, I always like to include an else here. So if it's not one of these three, then what do we do? You know, so it should, these two question marks should never be returned here. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to add a label to the screen here. And let's say GBL Hamburger State. And it's blank. So in that case, it would go to the question marks. And does a component have any type of on visible or anything? No. So what I'm going to do here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a timer to initialize values. Set this up to 1 millisecond. It won't repeat. It will auto start. And then on the timer end, I'll do a set here and say global variables initiated. Set that to true. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is well, that should work just as is. But if we wanted to use that Boolean here in some way, 1 millisecond is really quick. I think I might want 10 milliseconds. And then I don't want it visible. Okay, just visible to us. And then let's say we had a bunch of code in here and we only wanted it to happen if that initiated was false or not that. There we go. All right. And what I would do here is set this up to be expanded, whatever you want the default to be for that. All right, I'm just gonna okay, there we go. So we know it's never going to be blank. All right. I think for now, I'm going to give this a little bit of a border. Okay. Now this menu, I don't want it to really be all that wide. Let's go over and look at the typical width. Okay, so we got 394. Over here, I think we got something more like 600. Let's just make it 400. Now for the tab control, I want the Y to be right below this menu, or right below this hamburger. So I'm going to grab the name of the hamburger. I'm going to click on this tab control, go to its Y, and say whatever its Y plus its height. And so it'll always be right below that. And then the X, now we should open up a property called alignment. You see what we have there? Tab list.assignment. Let's go in here, create a new alignment property, make it an input, and probably the best thing to use, because we don't have a type for that enumeration, we could just say text, click on create, and we'll set the alignment to be by default vertical. And if we select this, we see the data type is text. Okay, very good. So I'm going to click on the tab control, go to the alignment, and now we need to wire this up to the property that we just created. So in this case, comp tab menu dot alignment. Okay, there we go. And what we should do here is on the Y. Let's open this up a little more. And we need to say if this controls alignment equals vertical, then this is where we want the Y to be. Now, if it was horizontal, where would we want it? We would probably want it at the ICO hamburgers Y, which is probably 0. Now I'm going to copy all this, and I'm going to go to X. Here we go. And this is probably going to be the exact opposite. So I'm going to cut that, paste it here, put a comma in here, take out that comma. All right, so if it's vertical, it's going to have the same thing as the hamburger's X. Same thing here. And let's do width there. Okay. So that should handle where it goes. So if it's vertical, you want this tab to be right underneath this icon, this hamburger. And if you make it horizontal, it's going to be over here along the top. Okay. Now, I do see Kevin's question here. Can you remove the space padding around the containers on screens to make it edge to edge like a typical app? Yeah, you can. So let's go to one of these screens here. And if you look at, you see this container for the whole screen? We could take out all the padding and then go to this one. What type of padding do we have here? You look at the gap, you look at the padding. So that's for the header bar. If we go down to this one here, we could take out all the padding.
And then we want to go up to this one and look at, see, it's got a gap. So it's got a gap right there. So we change that to 0. And then down here, we've got a gap of 16. Change that to 0. Do you like that, Kevin? So you see how that can work? All right. Very good. Now for this menu here, uh, now we could create properties for all kinds of stuff, like the font size. Let's make that more like 20. I think what people like about this tab control is that it's no nonsense. It's very, it's almost minimalistic. I'm gonna go with medium, and it doesn't need to be so big. So if you've got a lot of screens, you got a lot of space for this to display all of them. So I'm sort of liking this font size of 20. Hey, I see Franco in here. How you doing, Franco? All right. So let's go back over to our component. And what else we want to do here is we want to go over to the width. And let's see here. Let's use up, we'll say parent.width. But at that point, we probably need to subtract self.x. In most cases, it'll probably be 0. But if it's over here, it would need to subtract a little bit to account for the spacing of the hamburger. All right, let's go to the height. And we'll do the same thing or something very similar, which is parent.height, and then subtract self.y. Now, if we didn't subtract it, it would be hanging off a little bit here, the same height as that hamburger. So we've taken care of that. Now, what about the width and the height of the component here? We could set this up. Now, if I said parent, notice that it's not there. So what are we going to do here? Well, we could say app dot design width, which might be a little too big. So I'm just going to put it back to 400. And the height will be so. Like anything you drop, you add to a screen, you could always change the width and the height of it. Okay, what else can we do here? Now, what I like, remember I was telling you guys that, see that little vertical blue line, that bar there? I don't want it to be so close to the side there. So I think what I would like to do is add on maybe 10. I think that might look nice. What did we do over here? I think it might have been even less than that. Maybe 6. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Now, we should probably tie into the font color. So if we go over here, well, let's go over here to the color palette and let's see what we can do. Comp tap menu dot foreground color. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. And we've got, here's the font color. So let's put that in there. Is it going to allow that? No, it's actually wanting the font. Okay. Yeah, I don't want anything in there. There's the font color. I'll paste it there. Now, do you guys like that? Do you like the menu text to be that that blue as well? I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think I like it. All right. Now, do we still have our event property in here? Yeah, we navigate. Okay. And do we still have our default selected items? It looks like it's been commented out. Let's take that out. It does not like that. So this should be comp tab menu dot menu items. Okay. Very good. All right, so I'm going to collapse all these guys here. I think I might add the new control to our screen 5. I'm going to click on it, make sure it's selected here in the tree view, and I'm going to remove it. And of course, we did have a label that was referencing that. We're going to go ahead and delete that and delete that one. And now we're going to add our custom component right in there. Now look at this. We got 2 screen 5s. Isn't that cool? Not really, huh? So I'm going to go home, about, screen 5. And we have 2 screen 5s. That is really annoying, isn't it? So that is what I found that this little tab control does when you try to bring it in to a component. And okay, so we're expanded. If I click on the hamburger, it goes to collapsed. I don't even know if I spelled that right. Did I spell that right, guys? I'm going to Google it. I think I did. Okay. If I click on it again, it goes to hidden, expanded, collapsed. Okay. So we know that that's working well. Okay. So what I am going to do is I need to get rid of that extra item. Now, we fixed the last issue that we had by exiting out and coming back in. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try that out. I'm going to back out, come back and see if that bug is still there. Okay. And of course, I'm going to have to click that button, go to about, then go to screen 5, and we still got those 2 items. Well, let's take a look at this control here. For the menu items, did we ever pass in our collection? No, we haven't. But it should be exactly the same thing, right? I'm going to go to the home screen, click on that guy again, and then I'm going to grab the name of that, go down to the screen, and really what we should have is we take all that out and put in the menu items there. And we still have duplicate items. Going to home. Now we've got duplicate homes. Now we got duplicate abouts. Okay, so how are we going to handle this? It's like we almost need to do a distinct function or something, right? Okay. So what I want to do, it's almost like it looks at default selected items and then it adds it to this. All right. In fact, if we go over to the default selected items, okay, it is looking at the same collection. So what I'm going to do is go into items, and I am going to utilize the distinct function. And the distinct function does take a table or a collection value. Now we're going to have to tell it what item that, distinct will create a single column collection and call it value. What is the one column that we want to have there? it's going to be menu text. That's exactly what we need. So let's see how that works. Something isn't working right, huh? Now, the self.selected has been messed up because this now is holding a pretty much a different collection. So we got the distinct, I can select all of that and you'll see what we have now. We only have this. That's all we have. Okay. So when we do the navigate, what we should do, take that out. And I'm going to reference the comp tab menu dot menu items. And what I want to do is do a lookup in there. And the criteria by which we will find a specific item in that collection will be the menu text. Of course, I need a comma right there. Yeah, menu text equals self dot selected dot value. And that should be it. Now, lookup, if you give it 2 parameters, it's going to return a record. If you provide a third parameter here, it will return a single value. Now, in this case, we want it to return the screen to go to, and that will be a reference to the screen. So that should work. Now, we don't have any items here. All right. So what we want to do is we need to go into fields. Now we don't have a menu text because we use distinct. Oh, now it works. Now I'm not going to leave that up to chance. I'm actually going to say, yeah, use the value. Okay. So when we go to screen 5, hey, it's looking good. In fact, let's test out the about. Okay, we're at the about. Let's go. And notice we're not using our control here. We're just using the tab natively there. I'm going to go to screen 5. Okay, that's looking good. I'm going to click on home. I think the component that we've created is now working better than what we had there before. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to remove that guy. And go to the About screen, click on that tab. I'm going to delete that and paste it in there. Okay. I want to save and run. This menu is actually seem to be working well. Now things are jumping around because that About we really took out all the padding, so it looks like it's the screen's like really moving around. Now look at this. We're on screen 5, but screen 5 is not selected. So what happened last time? We needed to exit and come back in. Let's try that. All right. I'm going to run this. I'm going to click on that button. I'll go to About. The About is not selected. If I click on screen 5 is not selected. So now we need to go into Components, go down to our tab control here, and and something isn't working quite right here. And I think what I might do, oh, remember what we did before? We can filter this. Let's see if that fixes it. So I'll go home. Home is not selected. I click on screen 5. Screen 5 is not selected. So that's not really working out. Now in my other project, I didn't compare the screen names. I just compared the screen cells. I'm going to go to About, Home. Still not working. And again, this was something that was fixed once I went out and back in. So I'm going to try that one more time. Kevin, you don't like all that padding, huh? Yeah. You know what would be a good way, something good to put in your application is a constant that you define in the app.formulas, and you call it default padding. And then you set everything up to use that padding and set your default to be 0. And then for my apps, I might, if we're using the same application template, then I could set mine up to be 10, All right, I'm going to run this. I'm going to hit this button here. We're on the home screen. I'm going to click About. Ooh, it's not working. Okay. Let's go take a look at the on select. Yeah. This tab control is a bit of a pain in the rear, if I may say so. It's a little unpredictable. So anyway, filter those menu items. You know what? You know what's different is the default selected items is expecting distinct. So if I said dot, see, why can't I get, how a gallery you got all items? That would be nice, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go use the same expression that I have here. Now here, this would be, that's where it gets a little complicated. So what we'll have after that distinct, we'll have to say value equals. And we will need to do a lookup on that. where the menu text equals value. And then we'll say screen to go to equals that. All right. I hope that works. I'm going to run this. We are on screen 5. Click on About. We are on the About screen. Home. We're on the Home screen. I like it. Very good. Shoo. I was sweating there a little bit. You can imagine the 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 thoughts that go through your mind while you're conducting a live stream when something isn't happening the way that you're expecting. It can be a little unnerving. Okay. So what do we want to do here? So expanded for this component. Now the height is 640 and the width is 400. Now what I want to do is expose an output property. And this is going to be called Hamburger state. I guess it didn't give me that. Okay, so it's going to be output. Visual state, I sort of like that, rather than hamburger value. Probably be a good idea to put in some type of description here. As the hamburger is clicked, value changes. And we'll keep it as text. Now what we want to do is we want to grab that global variable here. And let's make the default value that variable. Okay. I'm going to go over to the screen. And for the height, well, might want to do a switch for this. And I'm going to say self dot, what do I call it? Visual state. If that is, I want to get at those 3 values. And it's in the X and the Y. At least I thought. Here we go. Grab those 3 values. And I'll put it right there. Now, if it is expanded, then I want to say parent dot height subtract self dot y. Okay, if it's collapsed, then what I'm going to say here is I need to come up with a good number here. So if we've got width and height is 40. No, I don't want the timer. I want the tab control. Font size 20. Look at that. Okay, let's add a property called menu item size. And let's make this a number. Create, and let's set this up for a default value of 40. There we go. So now this thing can all be dynamic. Here's our hamburger. We're going to go to the width and say comp tab menu item size. We'll use that not only for the width, but also for the height. And you know what I'll do down here? For the font size, I'll just take that number and divide it by 2. Do you guys like that? I might say 0.5. That might be better. And then I might go with medium. Small is probably a little too much. I think I like medium. Now, if you want to expose that as a property so it can be sort of configured, then you could do that. Go back over to the screens. Now, for the height, here we can say self dot menu item size. Do that. Okay. And then if it's hidden, actually, if it's collapsed, I need that multiplied by 2, because if it is hidden, we'll only want to see the hamburger. Okay. There's collapsed. There's hidden. You guys like that? Now, what does this look like if I make this bigger? Okay, there's 60. And it looks like it's still working just fine there. Okay. Now, what we could do for this container here, we could reference our component, our menu, and we could set up the width. Well, let me go over here. Width, and say, hey, whatever the width is of that guy. Let's see if this works, because it may not work, because these responsive containers can be a little weird. Okay, you see we've got, okay, this width here for this guy. Huh. width is not changing. And what we set up was the height. Okay, so we need to set up the width. Copy that. Let's go into the width. There's the width, and we'll subtract the X. If it's collapsed, then we'll use that. If it's hidden, that should work. Now, this rule creates a circular reference. Yeah. Okay. Now I wonder if this has anything to do with, yeah, I'm going to comment this out for a moment and just see what happens. Run it. Huh. I want to see where our component begins and ends here. I'm going to give this a light red color. It doesn't look pretty, but okay, you see that? Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. This looks better. Yeah, thank you. Um, do you like the red color better? All right. So I'm trying to get this guy to adjust. Um, and it's the width that's sort of bothering me here. So we've got I don't see any layout min height, layout min width. Okay. Oh, how did I do it over here in my other project? Now, this one wasn't so fancy. I know that. And we look at, do I have the width dynamic? No. All right. Now I do have a different menu system over here that does handle that. So let me see how I handled that here. Yeah, I referenced the controls width. But this thing has a width of that. Okay. Um mhm. Okay. So sometimes it's whenever you get one of those errors about circular reference, you got to rethink how you've got everything. But yeah, I do like that. I think what it's going to have a problem with is this parent dot width. I think that's what the issue is. and then the parent's width is dependent upon it. So we can't really use that. Okay. What is the best way of handling this? Um, this is sort of weird. Like, why is it so wide? Let's look at that. So this would be considered collapsed. And so this should be that. There we go. And then the height. Oh yeah, you're expecting the hamburger function to function like what I have in my other template. Um, Somebody mentioned that they wanted like in a mobile type of orientation, um, for it to be completely um, sort of hidden like that. Okay, so got this, that. All right. I think what I will do to make this really flexible is I'm going to say expanded expanded size. Um, and notice I'm not doing a width or height. You know how the gallery is set up where you got template, like template size, and depending upon if it's a vertical or horizontal, it will use it accordingly. So that's what I'm thinking about here. It could be input a number. So we've got that. And then so here I'll just say 400. And then for the default value for width, I will say comp tab menu dot expanded size, but that's only if the comp tab menu dot alignment equals that. If it is vertical, hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I should do something like this instead of that. Instead of width, it would be expanded state. Expanded size. If it's collapsed, menu size. Hidden, menu size. Okay. But that's only if it's vertical. It is. Okay, so the view state. I need a comma there. Gee whiz. If it's vertical, expanded size. Yeah, I think this will be all menu size on the width. If it's vertical, now this is horizontal tabs. This will be vertical tabs. Might make it a little more maintainable here. So for vertical, we want the width to actually use that menu size, expanded size. And for the horizontal on the width, if it's expanded the width, for the width, we want that collapsed and then hidden. Actually, I don't know what a collapsed version of horizontal tabs would be, to be honest. So I'm going to leave that the same. And then hidden would be, yeah, the menu item size. Okay, so that should work. Take out that comma there. Okay. Now we'll go into the height. All right. And now we will say the height of a vertical Um, okay. So if it's vertical on the height, if it's expanded, hmm, I almost want expanded width and height now. Now that I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, we sort of need that. We have expanded size. Let's width. Was it going to be as slick as I thought it was? Okay, expanded size. It's now width. And we need to create one for the height. And it's going to be a number. Okay. So we're back to the width here. We want expanded width. Okay. Expanded height. And if we're collapsed, it'll be menu size. Times 2. And if they're horizontal, expanded, that'll actually be menu height. Maybe the same thing there, and then the hidden will be the size. Okay. Phew. I hope that all works. What do we got here on the height? Ew. I do not. Hmm. Okay, so for the tab, okay. Yeah, let's go over here and test this out. Hidden. So I want that height. Okay, expanded height. Expanded height, I'm going to set this up to be parent dot height. So the visual state, it is collapsed. If it's expanded, if it's collapsed, Like this should be that. Horizontal. Okay. Yes, when it claps, the height should be height. So this is collapsed. And dot height self dot y. Yeah. Now, is that what you want to see in a collapsed menu? Does that look good? All right, so if I go over here and let's make that transparent. I'll move this guy right here. Ooh, yeah, I don't like that. Well, that. What do you guys think of that? Expanded. Let's get these little icons. Now, I just don't like the spacing between the bar and the icon. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. We could. Let's go take a look at this tab control, and we'll see if we have any type of padding in here. Now we do have this size, and if we change this to small, I don't think that makes it look any better. So I'm going to set it back to medium. And let's go look at these advanced properties. Yeah, I don't see any property on this tab control that allows us to control that padding between that vertical line on the tab. So just want to be thorough here. Okay, so there's really nothing we can do about that. Now, if it's collapsed, let's go in here and look at the height. Okay, and it is hidden, but that really should be times 2, so we see the ellipsis. Okay. 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 Now that hamburger is a little larger than what I wanted when it's on the screen. So what I'm going to do is for the left and the right. What I'm going to do is I want to take self on the hamburger, its width, and divide it. I'm sorry, multiply it by 20%. On the right, I'll do the same thing. And the top will be the same thing, except it'll be height. And the bottom, there we go. I think I might put a border on there just to see what we're working with. And maybe make that 2. Okay. Maybe make it 30%. No, I almost want that border to be gone now. All right. Okay, I think that looks appropriate now. Okay, I think I'm ready to take that uh, annoying little label, at least make it invisible for now. We might keep it in for debugging purposes. All right. So this guy right here, I would probably want to set up its minimum. Do we have a minimum width? We do have a minimum height. Okay. Let's look at the width here. All right, so now we don't have anything. Um, Now I thought that we might have created. Now I didn't want to create a new component. Look at that. We have expanded width and expanded height. Now these responsive controls. Oh, okay. Dustin says layout min width. Wow. Thank you. There we go. So we got minimum width and that will be the comp tab menu 2 dot width. Okay. And then over here, it's got these fill portions. And if we set this up high, I'm hoping that it will behave the way that we want it to. All right. We'll set this to a much larger number. I don't know that that's a good way to control that, though. So put that back down to what it was before. Let's say 12. And so if we reference that, control. Now, can we say there's no max width? Yeah, we can't get away with using the width there, but we can hopefully use that expanded width. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do expanded width, and it's just a static number. Okay. Um, hmm. What about changing the fill portions to a switch statement? Hmm. What? Hmm. So if I said 1, does that look appropriate? Um, I'd like this component to be self-contained and not have to mess with this out here. You see? So this guy, it's like it knows between the two of these where to come up with this number over here off to the right. Yeah, based off the menu statement. Yeah. Yeah, we could do that. I just want it to be very simple. If I'm going to add it to this menu to a screen, I want it to have as much of the features and functionality contained inside that component. So now we do have, yeah, expanded width. So I'm thinking about what you're saying here, Dustin. Changing the fill portions to a switch statement based on your menu state. Yeah. Um, I don't know if you're catching what I was saying there is when I build a component, I don't want to have to change a lot of things outside the component in order for it to, I mean, the component is functioning properly, but you see, um, okay. So just based on what you're saying here, if I used, let's go over here and look at this visual state. And I put, okay, this fill portion, and let's see what we can do here. If it's vertical, if it's expanded, then we might want, I don't know, 10. Collapsed, 1. Hidden, one. Now if it's horizontal, we'll probably want like 10. So here, cannot be used on error values. What? Oh, there we go. Okay. So we did set this fill portions up, and it's set at 1, but this doesn't look very good. And that would make me want to come over here and like change this like 50, or something. And then I would want to base that on the same thing, like something like this. So I don't want to have to like change a bunch of things around on the screen just to accommodate the control. Um, well, yeah. I mean, it sort of works, but again, I just didn't like having to change that. But, all right. So if we take this and we copy it, we go over to the About screen. That doesn't have any padding. I'm going to go in here and delete that guy. Put him in there. And this guy is, its width and its height is not working out so well. So what is the visual state? It's blank. Yeah, it's blank. Okay. So for this external property here, we'll probably need to do something like a coalesce. So if it finds a blank value, then we'll use that. That'll help us out. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Dustin. It's easier to make the menu happen with buttons or icons inside of a gallery. Yeah, galleries are it's just a wonderful control. Love it. But I wanted a challenge today. I wanted to use this tab control, which we could probably do everything that the basic one does inside of a gallery. Okay, so this is looking okay. But you notice you'd have to, make changes to that. Uh, Trying to think of a good way of how to handle that. Because I just, there's something about it I don't like. I don't want to have to change that. I want this thing, the width, to be based off its width, which right now is 400. All right. So I want that thing to shrink up with it. You know what we could do? We have expanded width and height. Okay. And this is more of a responsive container issue than what I've got over here. Um, like on my Jumpstart kit, the first one that I did. See here, I don't even try to collapse it, but here I do. How did I set that up? Let's go in here and see how I did that. Hmm. The width of this container is 500. Isn't that interesting? And is the width and the height of this thing app.design height? Okay. Huh. So if I set this thing up to be 500, it is set up to 500. What is in the width property of the container around the tab menu? 500. And what I want to do is refer to this control's width, but there's a circular reference. So yeah, that's the answer to that. Okay. I might come back to that issue. Let's go back to the home screen. Okay, home screen is looking nice. I'm going to copy that. Go down to screen 5. All right, I'm going to delete that one. And just want to test the control. There we're in the about. Here we're at home. Now, what happens if I change this from vertical to horizontal? All right, well, so yeah, that works, I guess. And let's get rid of that ugly green color. There we go. In a non-responsive application, like in my Jumpstart kit, let's take a look at this. Um, in the case with non-responsive, is that as long as it's on top, it can expand and collapse and be just fine, you know? So you're asking what is the flexible width? Okay. Now, I don't see a flexible width. Is it over here? Oh, there it is. 3. Oh, it's the fill portions. Look at this. It's the same thing. Oh my goodness. So if I turn that off, huh, that's interesting. It's like there's so many things in here that control the width and the height. Interesting. So turn flexible height. You know, I'm gonna set this to like, I don't know, 40. Yeah, in this case, I have flexible height on or flexible width on. If I change that, it's even bigger. Here you got 1 of 8, and over here we got 7 8. And if I set that to 40, huh? If you turn off flexible, it uses the width property. Ah, interesting. It uses the layout minimum width. Okay, well, let's play around with that. All right, so if it is on, it uses the minimum width. So I'm sort of hoping that I could use that. Okay. And its width is 28. Uh, Interesting. So if I click on this, go to width, why is that 28? That seems really small. That's 40. We got menu item size is 60. Aha. This should say self.expanded width. Yeah, I think fill portions. Okay. Um, I think we just got it. Using flexible width. Now I am using quite a bit of fill here. Let's change this down to a reasonable number like 20 and make that 1, and let's see if this still works the way that we intend it. Aha. Dustin, you get a free car. No, um, Dustin, I really appreciate you um, interacting with me here because I think that this will take care of this. Okay, so what do we do over here? We turn on flexible width. Okay, and then we got minimum width. And the minimum width, okay, should be okay, let's see what this Ugh. Reset the fill portions on the main container. Now, when you say main container, oh, yeah, there you go. Main fill portions. What do I got to set it to in order to? Aha! Look at this minimum width. So I got it there. 3. Let's set that to 1, maybe. And then the width of this guy. Why is that 92? What is the visual state? Expanded. No, that should be self-expanded width. Okay. I think we're making progress, guys. Not as fast as I want, but hey, it's the nature of the game, right? So the width here, yeah, expanded width. And I feel like I should put in a default value here because sometimes that visual state is not set up. Well, I guess the default would be expanded. So, yeah, we're okay there. All right. Expanded width, expanded height. Okay. Now, I'd sort of like to create a new screen with a sidebar and add it fresh and new into this. Custom. Look at that. So we'll have to give this the it's so funny how it won't it won't give me IntelliSense on this collection we created, right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control A and Control X. I'm going to go over to the formulas now that we've sort of formed this up nice. Can't have a clear collect in that formulas. Do an equal here, and at the end, we'll put a semicolon. Yeah, check the fill portions on that new screen and see what the default values are. Okay, I'll do that here in just a second. I need to fix this issue. It's already used for a collection. Okay, well, I took it out. Right. So if we exit and come back in, it should be gone. We're just gonna have to go out and come back in, I think. I deleted the trailing parenthesis. Yeah, we'll take a look at that here in a moment. Okay. So this menu here is using this, and we've got the items. Very good. Now let's go to that new screen and see if this is all working right. FX menu items. There we go. Now look at this. Those icons seem a little bit. The icons seem a little bit cut off there. All right, so let's look at the fill portions on this new screen. Okay. So the fill portions, 3 out of 10. And of course, this would be 7 out of 10. So over here, this seemed to work. Ugh. Wow, that's messed up. Okay. What is going on with the width here? It's blank. Okay, see that visual state? Let's go into visual state. It's blank. So it should have gave us expanded. Which makes me want to just replace it with an if and not use coalesce. So we can do is blank. Otherwise, we'll use that. All right. So now we'll go back over here. We got that component there. What is the width? It's a blank. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We've got let's make the default state expanded. Very good. Now I am going to, okay, is this working the way that I would expect it? Yeah, but where are the, where's the ellipsis? So here I'm going to give it a gray color. And then on the height, it is vertical. The visual state is probably hidden. Yeah. Yeah, we need to multiply that by 2. Okay, that's what I would expect. Now the width of this is cutting off those icons a little bit. So let's go in here on the width. And it's going to be the collapse. Okay, so the menu size times 1.1, 1.2. There we go. That looks better. Okay, we got screen 1. So we should go to app formulas and add screen 1 here. There's screen 1. We'll put that guy right there. And the sort order will be 20. Now let's put in a different emoji here. Do one of those. Okay. Okay. I like it. Now, the width. You see the width, like it's hanging off the edge a little bit there. If it's expanded, we have expanded width. Do we have padding in here? We don't have any padding. Okay, so we are vertical, right? Yeah. Then I select this, and we are expanded. Then over here, okay, we got that. Expanded width. Minimum width. So here I'm going to use this control because I have the flexible width on. There we go. I want it to shrink though. Okay, that's set up to be 500. Hmm. Something I don't like on this guy, you know how our X moves a little bit. Yeah, we add 6 there. So we got this visual state. Let's take a look at that. For the X, if self.x comp, yeah, I'm going to have to use that variable. Okay. If it equals hidden, not hidden, then it's 6. Otherwise, 0. But I also need another if. Okay. Yeah, so Kevin says, can you copy and paste screen 5 and rename it to 1? Yeah. Yeah, I can do that here in a moment. Okay, so what I essentially was doing right there was if it's collapsed, those 3 dots were like not really centered. And I don't even know, it doesn't really look all that centered to me right now either. So I think what I'm going to do here is put in there a 2, and that looks centered. Okay. Now I think I will take out this background color, make it transparent again. All right. So Kevin asks, we're going to copy and paste screen 5. So this is screen 5 here. And rename it. Well, I can't rename it screen 1 because this guy's name screen 1. So I'd have to make that screen 2. So I'll duplicate 5 and call it screen 1. So that was interesting. So when I went to hidden, the height was not adjusted. Yeah. Okay. I guess I can get rid of all that. Okay. So that's the width of the component. The height, if it's horizontal, well, and if it's here, and the visual state is expanded, but if it's hidden, it should be menu size times 2. Okay. This is what it can be like when you're creating a component. It's it doesn't seem to really over here it works. That makes me believe. Okay, so well, look at that guy. So is that horizontal? Yeah. So this is working by default. Now, whenever you bring over a custom control like this, if you got, you can change what the defaults are and you can sort of mess it up. So what I'd like to do is, yeah, look at this height here. What? So the height is vertical right there. The visual state is expanded, and we have expanded height. So maybe we should set up the default for expanded height to be something like app.design height, maybe 90% of that. And then expanded width, to 400 is probably about right for our default. Maybe for the height, more like 75. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the home screen and I'm going to delete that guy. And it's depending upon it. You see that? All right. I am going to go into custom and hopefully it'll paste it right in there, and it does. Good. Very good. Hey, look at that. It's working. Okay, so by default, it seems like it's working fine. And I'm gonna go look at the menu items here. We have 3, but I want to have, should have 5, right? So we got home, about, screen 5. So we need 1 and 2. Screen 1. And we already have screen 2 there. Okay. Screen 1, we need 5. Put a little check mark. And let's do something else here, like a bang. There we go. So, yeah, we just did that. Should have. Oh, you see what I did here? We need to go get FX menu items. All right. Uh, what? Did I mess this up or what? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Home screen, about screen, screen 5, 1, and 2. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of them is duplicated. 2, 5. Yeah, we don't need 5 down here. Okay. There we go. Hey, what do you guys think? So this container has flexible width on. And then its fill portions are set up like that. Okay. But this guy is set up as 50. Absolutely. Yeah, we can see how the menu will look when it's mobile. Yeah, let's do that. Um, that's not what I was expecting. Yeah. So yeah, this is the mobile view. Let's see if we can do this. Um, let's move this. So I'm expecting it to, you know what I didn't do, guys? I need to go in here and turn this stuff off. Scale to fit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Ew. Look at that, guys. That's what I was expecting. You guys like that? All right. I'm guys, I'm pretty pleased with what we came up with, and it's actually a better menu than what I had for this guy because this guy doesn't expand and collapse. So, sort of glad that we did this today, you know. Now this template is something we're building on Monday nights. And we have a whole community for this. If you guys want to join that, this is the link to it. I started that community at just $1 a month, and now it's 25 a month because we got quite a few features built into it. So, for example, if you what I really like is this SharePoint screen where I can create all my SharePoint sites, lists, and fields. But anyway, I also have a code snippet repository out here that's completely open and free for you guys to for the community to access. Okay, so I've got a lot of cool stuff in here. Let me think. Yeah, at formulas. Oh, this is sort of cool. You know how like we have an enumeration of icons. What if you want all the I think there's 178 icons. Yeah, 178 that's defined within Power Apps. So if I copy this and I go in at formulas, here we go. Now we have a whole collection of icons. Okay, so check this out. Now that you've got that, look, all icons in a gallery. All right, so now I can copy that, paste as code. Okay. Now, something isn't working the way I'm anticipating it to. I don't know why that width is 1. That should be self.height. And then this label should be ICO icon dot x plus ICO icon dot width. So I'll have to see what's going on there. But look at this. Yeah, let's go canvas. There we go. Look at this. You got all your icons in a gallery. You could filter, you can sort, you could do a lookup, you can get at the name. How cool is that? It's got all this data here. And I've got a description. And we got tags. Something, you know, those one or two things I had to fix when I pasted. I need to look into that. Here's something cool that I saw Matthew Devaney post over in LinkedIn. You put this in your app formulas to know if you're in Power App Studio or not. So you might want to have something happen. So I highly recommend checking out his article that he had over here. Check that out. So you guys might want to take a look through this. This isn't that big of a deal. If you want to standardize on how long you want your your code comment lines to be, I put that in there. If you want to use doc icons, you can reference these already created SVG files. You just need to put an extension in there, and you could use these icons. If you want to get at the root URL of your SharePoint site, I love this on air. I've talked about this before, so I won't go over it. But if you put this in your app on air property, and I explain how to do all that. If you go to README, it explains this whole thing, and then it will send you and or your users this thing here. A little email with that. Connectors. What do we do here? You want a cool little example of sending an email. Now, it's not too hard, but what about all the possible items that you could have for the sensitivity? Okay, that's there. You've got all the properties defined in these curly braces. And if you have an attachment control there, boom. And then if you go over here, if you want to copy over an attachment, that should create you an attachment control. Now, how do people normally do this? They got to bring up a form. Okay, nothing is attached, so you can easily create an attachment control. So I got all kinds of really cool stuff. Office 365 users for a classic combo box. If you want a people picker control, boom, you've got a code snippet for that. You want a cool looking gallery with showing all of the ASCII code characters. There's all kinds of cool stuff in here, and I'll continue to add to this. Okay. All right. So I'll probably move this over to our Jumpstart Kit 2.0. And I might actually include it in my code snippet, to be honest. See if you guys want to, access that. You can. All right, guys. Well, what's the best way to reach me if you have questions? What's funny is I just tried to show my video and that's not working. Let's see here what's going on. Turn it off, turn it back on. I'm just not having a good time with my my equipment here. Yeah, I'll include the code snippet link here. Okay, not only that, but if you go over to the free community, by the way, guys, we're going to have a 5-day challenge on getting certified, Microsoft certified on the PL900. And right now we're really considering this and let's see, I think that's exactly like 2 weeks from now. Yeah, 2 weeks and 1 day. I think that's when we're going to have it. And it'll be a 5-day run through. And then what I'm thinking is Friday, I'm going to encourage everybody in the 5-day challenge to, set up their PL900 and take the exam. So just by going through the course, it should prepare you for the exam. And you could set up to take it Friday morning, and then Friday afternoon we can all come back and let everybody know if we passed or failed, or what type of a learning experience did we have. So that the PL900 is the Power Platform Fundamentals, and so that's going on. If you have a question, you're stuck, you need help, you can always go through this. This is our support email address. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. And then if you look at, gee whiz, where's today's? Oh, I just saw it. Right here. I'll put the link in there as well. Now, the burning question that's probably in everyone's mind. Well, I have a favor to ask you guys.
Out of this, a comment or even a like really helps the channel, and lets people like you know this is good content. Much appreciated.
All right, now the burning question is, What video should you watch next?
You're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, gotta hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video.